Chapter 22.
Nara awoke, nestled between the two thumpers, their bodies pressed up tightly to her still naked form. As she pushed herself upright, she remembered the cold waters chilling her to the bones, but not much prior. The sky above was littered with the brilliant spectacle of thousands of stars shining down on her, unfiltered as they were through the Ambrian night. Gaseous nebula, spinning the horizon in deep purples and vivid blues, distorted those stars within them to extend their reach to Nara. She saw the outline of Mushi at her feet, the clothing and items gifted to her by Zannah's spirit, neatly set upon the ground at the giant cat's maw. The memories came trickling back to her as she focused her gaze upon the black cylinder lying atop the clothing, and as such, thrust investigatory hands over her body to make sure she was still in one piece. She remembered the pain, the scorching, searing pain that rocked every centimeter of herself. She found nothing but raised bumpy scars in the place she knew where deep lacerations, horrendous jagged cuts, and spacious contusions were. With a deep sniff, Mushi fired his head toward the sky swiftly, grabbing Nara's attention with a start. She looked up, trying to follow his gaze, but found only the unhindered view of the stars above. Scanning its vastness, her attention was drawn to a waviness within the nebula she had focused on earlier. Squinting her eyes to down a smaller vision, she noticed unnatural movement between the stars within the field. She pushed herself to her feet, the chilly night nipping at her skin. She brushed aside the saber hilt and put the clothes back on to seal the cold. The leather jacket pulled the ensemble together perfectly. Even the cool breeze was thwarted in its efforts as she attached the saber hilt to the clip at her waist and patted down the side pocket to ensure the cube was still in place before looking up again. "It has begun, Nara," Zannah said to her side. "Who is coming, Zannah?" Nara asked, her eyes still locked on the approaching entity. "Both foe and friend, we sense. Ambria, I'm afraid, will host a convergence of galactic strengths the likes of which she has not seen in 8 millennia, Thon responded. "How did this happen?" Nara whirled on the twin spirits beside her. "I don't understand." "You have not been the only interested party in Ambria's secrets, young one," Thon informed her. "And if I've told you, Nara, your master has made his own attempts, yet was unable to shred the veil," Zannah added. Nara pinched her eyes shut as she let the frustration flow through and out of her. "I've already told you I have no master," she said after releasing her initial anger over the statement. Peace and calm took its place. "His decision to send me in his stead, then." "Mistress Nara," Thon turned his translucent head in her direction. With her eyes clear of her short-fused anger, she turned them again to the stars above. "It is me they are after. Sidious needs to know." "Nara, while we exist in a spiritual form, we do not possess the abilities to read minds," Zannah said, informing Nara that she had revealed nothing of substance. Nara looked to the ground, surveying the shadowy blackness of the valley's topography. "He could not shadow your veil, Zannah, so he charged someone else with the task." She turned to Zannah fully. "I do not know how he has learned of my success, only that he will come to collect, Zannah." "You bring war to Ambria, Nara?" Thon said, a deep resonating tone that Nara felt more than heard. "You misunderstand." Nara blinked through his harsh tone, adopting a peaceful inflection into her words. "The Empire brings war, Thon. I am..." She trailed off briefly and thought, why had I succeeded, and to whose motives? Why now would Sidious show any sign of interest in my progress, as I have been left to his whims for years? Having formed a thought, she looked upon the two translucent spirits. "Why am I here?" The question was not expected, at least from Thon's perspective. On the other hand, Zannah noticeably cast her gaze toward the northern horizon, as if to ignore the question altogether. "Zannah, why am I here?" she repeated, her focus intent on the wayward apparition. "Zannah." Thon turned toward her, the rumble in his voice evaporating, replaced by a melancholy. "They need to be destroyed, Thon. You know this," Zannah replied, her gaze still resting on the darkened cliffs far to the north. "It is not our place to judge what must be done," he replied in lament. His voice had become a sorrowful dirge to Nara's ears, and she began regretfully asking the question in the first place. "I have not wandered this beautifully broken world for millennia to be throttled by one of your own, Zannah. We still retain the freedom and choices to think for ourselves, do we not? I know they're out there, Thon, and with that, a deep-rooted threat will always exist. Zannah said matter-of-factly, turning to face Thon. Perhaps thwarted is overstepping. Nara felt the uncomfortable palpability between the two, quickly proving Zannah's statement. Immediately the tension dissipated as Thon released a hearty sigh into the air. I do not concede that to you. Perhaps I continue aligning my emotion with my living self. Nara let her emotions fade as the two seemed to find common ground on a topic she had yet to understand. Then she realized her question was never answered. I have no idea what you two are discussing. She felt a different approach may be necessary. Both spirits turned toward her, Thon beckoning Zannah with a translucent paw. There exist gateways within this galaxy to a place where time and space do not abide. Zannah began, to their own general laws. She finished with a thoughtful tone. Openings that can redefine what is known, she continued, trying to settle between what she knew and what was never known. Zannah paused momentarily. It is difficult to explain without a semblance of perspective, Nara. Cognis knew of my increasing interest in the workings of the ancients. What she did not know was how deeply that interest lay. Zannah knew she would have to dive deeper into her past to relate her message, but realized she had never done so, finding herself ill-prepared to continue without the emotions involved that had once belonged to her mortal form. I had discovered the Zepho, Nara, not the beings themselves, but the relics they had left behind. Nara could nod in affirmation from the first time in the conversation. I have heard of them, she said. Sidious has amassed a similar trove. Then you understand the importance of what I'm about to tell you. Zannah's voice gained a new level of excitement. They traveled in many different ways throughout the universe. Zannah waited patiently for that to sink in. That is correct. Universal travelers, she clarified, seeing the wide-eyed expression taking over Nara. Vessels in more primitive times, but gateways toward the zenith of their ancestry. Gateways that bridge time and space, Nara. I fail to see how that's relevant. Zannah. Nara's confused expression returned. Zannah composed her gaze directly into Nara's eyes. You are here because Sidious knows of these gateways. It is why he has tried to shatter my veil in the past. I underestimated Cognis, Nara. Although brief, her time with Bane was efficient enough to drive the Sith's agenda to her core. Zannah smiled at Nara, a pleasant smile that reminded Nara of Undali. You are here because Sidious has underestimated you. Nara opened her mouth as Zannah spoke, trying the two tales into a braid of truth. She wanted to deny and accept what she had heard, finding the task impossible. Did you allow me at any time to see through your deception? Nara needed to know. The truth in the answer would lead her down a path of resolution she sought. Not at any point, Nara, Zannah replied. That will always be your success to own, one you found through exploring your own truth. Nor did I, Nara. The effects were solely yours, Thon added. The identification of personal truth is potent indeed, Zannah said. My own led to my demise. Yours, however, has opened a new path before you. Nara sighed, her thoughts into the open, a single breath that exhaled her worries and concerns into the cool Ambrian night air, into a quickly dissipating fog of steam. To Nara's surprise, Mushi had silently padded to her side, pressing his nose against her hip as he plotted his hindquarters down on the cool, rocky ground. She extended a hand to scratch at the fur between his ears, then turned again to face the apparitions. Purpose, it seems, has definition. As the giant cat began a rumbling purr, she said, To secure it, I cannot let them take me. On that, I think we can all agree. A new voice added its opinion, and Nara looked up. Mistress Zannah, it has been some time, Zar Ek said. Only Nara was surprised by his appearance. Master Ek, it has indeed been ages, my old friend. Thon was the first of the two spirits to acknowledge the new presence. Time is short. I will be candid, Zar said in a hurried tone. Allies are forthcoming as the threat to Ambria is made whole. The disembodied voice adopted caution in proceeding, defying his pledge. These allies, he paused. I advise an open mind. She heard the vessel before she saw it, the whine of massive repulsor bangs trading forward momentum with its eon drives, a distinct enough sound transition for anyone to note. Northern cliffs, Nara said, pointing a finger for her own benefit. The shrouding darkness melted away as the bright white aura emerged from the cliff face, illuminating the area above the jagged stone. Who? Nara asked nervously. Who is that? You already know that answer, Nara of the Bindu. Reach out and confirm as much, the voice advised. Nara bristled at the command, but realized within seconds it was anything but. She tightly gripped the fur of the cat's neck as she closed her eyes, feeling herself stretch out into the Force, letting it consume any building fear she possessed. She gathered the energy within her and then released it in a gentle wave toward the approaching vessel. Nara's mouth fell open in surprise as her efforts were rewarded. The resulting emotions took effect before her mind could process the information. She felt her heart skip a beat, her lungs constrict their airflow, and her legs tense into a defensive stance. Mushi, unaware of any threats, raised himself to all fours and began padding around Nara in a protective gaunt. Ahsoka, she managed to whisper the name. Her heartbeat returned to normal, and she breathed the night air with a relaxing gulp as her muscles instinctively relaxed on their own. But how? I would say the Force seems to work in inexplicable ways, but the truth is on my suggestion, the voice called Zar responded. Nara was not fully satisfied with the answer. Why, did you know? She wasn't sure how to obtain the information needed. Your answers will be forthcoming, that is a promise. For now, it is my self-assigned charge to watch over the matrix you possess, Zar continued. It is freely given, mistress? It is, Zannah replied. Nara was a cloud of confusion, as she had only the voice of an individual she could not see. The acquiescence of the two spirits she knew and the knowledge of the incoming Force user who had tried to kill her in their last encounter to navigate her sudden act of reality. Mushi responded with a low growl as Nara watched the northern cliffs, waiting for the aura of approaching light to reveal itself. She heard the rushing of scattering stones and swiveled slightly to see Eerie and Quinn padding over to take up residence beside her. Trepidation gave way to an inner calm as the four living beings added each their own energy to the collective they had formed. Nara felt the animals already knew the truth of the imminent confrontation and were only trying to relax her to the point that she could hear her contribution to the collective calm. Her instinct was to fight the calm and brace for battle, but she could sense the casual dismissal of that potentiality by simply looking beyond those instincts. Ahsoka, this is a big planet. What are we even looking for? Rex asked, one eye on the Liberator's scanner, the other peeled on the view before him, illuminated in the bright spotlight of the ship's forward array. Jagged peaks of swirling colors skewed by the artificial light stood majestically over dry, cracked ground at their bases. There are no concentrated life readings in this hemisphere. The ones I do have bearings on are scattered, but numerous. It is an ancient world, Rex. Life has been renewed many times over, Ahsoka said with a gentle hand on his shoulder, her eyes fixated through the transparent steel. She could sense that they were in the right place, but nothing visual presented itself. Although she sensed no danger whatsoever, a weak but steady flow of trepidation inexplicably presented itself. Annie, are there ships on your scopes? Something must be here. If there are, they're powered down completely. There are no signals or transponder pings at all, Kowani answered, looking over to the Truguda. Are you sure we're in the right place? No, Ahsoka thought. We've learned to trust Zar, Annie. We owe him this much. In an instant, the words rolled through her mind, and just as quickly they were gone. Open mind. Ahsoka closed her eyes to the distractions they brought with them and focused on the Force exclusively, deciding to let it guide them. A familiar sensation washed through her, genuinely sincere, friendly, but one she had recently encountered. But where? She involuntarily tilted her head to the side as she pinched her eyes closed in concentration. It was months ago. She filtered through her recent travels, marking off Crown Nest, Lethal, and Iskalon, too fresh. She knew this feeling was older. That only leaves. She thought through her process. Mustafar, she said aloud. Opening her eyes to the realization, she looked down slightly to see both Rex and Kowani staring back at her. You said Ambria, Rex interjected with a sidelong glance toward Kowani. Ahsoka was aware of the exchange and nodded toward Rex in response. The confused look on his face, she determined, would require more than a handshake. Headshake, sorry. Whom we seek, she began before a washing force wave flowed through her gently, almost nurturing by design. What was that? Kowani asked, seeming to feel the same energies Ahsoka did. Barriss, Ahsoka felt, but not Barriss. She pondered Zar's words, who is someone completely different. He had said, open mind, taking on a new meaning, she thought. Zannah. Ophi? How was that possible? She was killed on... Kowani spoke her own concentrated haze, only to be cut off by Ahsoka. Mustafar. Wait. Ophi? Barriss Ophi? Rex asked, swirling around completely. Yes and no, Ahsoka responded, only then realizing that Kowani had not only felt the same force energies, but had been able to decipher them accurately, prompting another of her prideful smiles. It is the same individual, but not the same person. Ahsoka, Kowani began, only to be counseled by a pleading hand gesture from the Turguda, palm down in a motion of easement. We must adopt an open mind. Many things have changed since Mustafar. She smiled inwardly at the thought, for the better, she thought. She closed her eyes gently. Her name... Ahsoka paused momentarily to let the Force call to her again. Her name is Nara. She finished with a trace of tears welling in her eyes. Things have changed indeed, she said aloud as she tapped Rex's shoulder and pointed toward a location due south of their current position. Nara felt a warmth she did not expect. Despite what she had gone through and the time she had been on Ambria, she surprised herself with the capacity she had retained to afford her emotions a relatable entry to her memories. She recalled the thoughts that formed themselves when she felt the hopelessness ensuing in those who had influenced her in the past. Although not who she was currently, those thoughts were born from the same memories regardless of the vessel. She had called out to her former master, and she had responded. She had remembered Ahsoka's determination and drive, and again, she had responded. Those thoughts, those memories she now realized, helped form the version of herself that she had dubbed Nara. It was that happiness, that beacon, which determined whether she succeeded. Open mind will always remain sage advice. This requires no open mind, only my open heart, Nora said aloud for all to hear. Perfectly timed with the source of the illumination cresting the cliff top and quickly heading her direction. There was time only for fleeting thoughts and a final check of her appearance and composure as the ship slowed to a crawl and decanted onto its landing pads 15 meters away. Nara squinting her eyes from the loose pebbles and dust kicked up from the ship's repulsors. The ship recoiled on its struts and shut down all exterior lighting, bathing the valley in the consuming darkness. Nara could see 3 forms in the cockpit before the lights went out in the compartment, all exiting prior. Within seconds, the boarding ramp lowered with a whine from its hydraulics as a blast of gaseous coolant bathed the area in their suppressants. As they made the leave from the cockpit, Kowani instinctively grabbed her A-180. Ani, please trust me. We will leave our weapons on the ship, Ahsoka said, looking at Rex. All of us. Ahsoka could hear the inaudible sigh as they let their hands drop from their respective reaches toward personal firearms and sharpened objects. In a sign of good faith, Ahsoka removed the sabers from their clips on her waist and placed them on the work table in the rear of the cockpit. Ahsoka, I took the creed, remember? Leaving my weapons behind is blasphemy, Kowani began to argue. And you are here as my friend, Ani, not as a Mandalorian, Ahsoka interjected without sounding harsh. Again, just trust me. She spread a smile across her face to drive the point home. Rex unholstered both of his blasters and set them along with his new blade down upon the table beside Ahsoka's saber hilts. With a relenting sigh, Kowani did likewise, unclipping the black saber hilt and placing it on the table, resting her rifle against the wall. She made to follow him out of the room, but halted when she realized they hadn't moved. They stared at her. She let out another muttering sigh and reached around her body to pull twin vibro blades from their respective inverted sheaths. The hold-out blaster she kept in her rear pant pocket, the 3 thermal detonators she had in the pack sling around her torso, and finally the mini savage she had firmly concealed around her ankle. She placed them all on the table and offered both hands up in complete surrender. Happy? She asked mockingly. Ahsoka only shook her head briefly before turning to leave, letting her emotion guide her for a change toward the boarding ramp actuator. She pressed the button with only mild hesitation. Remember, open mind. Although under the sway of Nara's influence, the animals were prepared to charge forward without hesitation as three figures emerged from the ship and proceeded in their direction. Holding firm to her resolve, Nara kept them under her calming presence after she sensed their collective instincts. With that task in hand, she reached out, greeting each newcomer with her mind as she closed her eyes. Greetings, Ahsoka Tano, formerly of the Jedi. Greetings, Kowani Y'mmat, formerly of Kino. Greetings, CT-7567, Captain Rex, formerly of the Grand Army of the Republic. As the three were within 5 meters, Ahsoka spoke. Greetings, Nara, she of the Bendu. She added a low bow out of respect and courtesy that was adopted by both at her side. I do not know how this is, only that it is. Nara could feel the animals revert to a calming peace of their own volition and ease back on her influence. It seems we all have our own paths to take when seeking truth, Ahsoka, Nara said with a respectful bow. There is much veracity in that statement, Ahsoka said, crossing her arms before her chest, her expression emotionless and almost blank. Ahsoka, I will not speak for Barriss Offee, although of the same blood we are not the same person. I speak for myself, for Nara, when I say I apologize for Mustafar. Your comments regarding my sisters at the time were taken out of some knowledge I thought I possessed. However, through my trials here, I have found a new perspective, Nara said, speaking from her heart. And I will forever repeat my apologies to you, Nara. Had I been more open-minded when heeding Barriss's plea years ago, you may have had a different perspective from which to begin. An awkward silence ensued as neither party could understand the need for collaborative involvement, only that a lone source suggested it. It was as if Zar spoke to the group on cue. I understand the complexity of this reunion in a way few can. I was present on Mustafar as well. My motives may seem driven by ambition, but merely by necessity, as Mistress Zannah has proffered her gift to Nara. The act, although noble, has stoked the wheels of activity, as it were, to a critical point. We will not agree on this, Zar, Thon said, sparking the craning of necks at Kowani and Rex, trying to find the speaker in the shadowy darkness. Thon? Chuktai Jedi Master Thon? Ahsoka was shocked. That Jedi, or even Sith, masters of old, retaining their spirit forms well after death was no surprise. However, this one was ancient. Of the Great Sith War? The same, Mistress Thano. Although Jedi is no longer a term applicable, we are of the Bendu, young Togruta, Thon replied, and we do not agree on all concepts. He finished with an upturn in reflection. Ahsoka let the words sink into her conscience, as the reality of it unnerved unnerved parts of her while soothing others. One can walk a different path, she thought. Of course you can, Zannah interceded. I feel your hesitation, Miss Tano, and am relieved there is no accompanying fear or anger. If Master Thon can walk his own path outside of the constraints of the Jedi, so too can I walk mine outside of the tenets of the Sith. That choice is yours as well. Ahsoka had never considered her own internal or personal dilemmas could be satiated or even more broadly pondered here on Ambria. She had felt, as she always had, that the mission was a priority or objective outside of her personal space. An open mind, she reminded herself. I am at risk, it seems. Nara entirely turned the conversation down a different path, snapping Ahsoka out of her reverie. Through the mechanisms of Sidious, I have uncovered what he could not. He will come for me. And you need us to protect you? Kowani chimed in for the first time. Ahsoka sensed a boiling hostility within the young Marillion, one that wouldn't hesitate to throttle the incarnation of Barriss Offee right here on the spot, but also a sadness that occurred from deeper within. Nara addressed the question with an initial stare. Was it not KS-237 that repeatedly advised using your given name? Why then do you let the child of Kino simmer? You too have shown the capacity for change in its deepest form, yet scoff at the notion that others can too. Sensing the tension building in her friend, Ahsoka rested a calming hand on her back. Remember that we've been searching for a more impactful way of making a difference, Ani. You did say to cast the net into the oceans, did you not? She said in a hushed tone that was meant for the Marillion. Opening your mind is, at times, synonymous with opening your heart as well. Remember, Nar Shadday. Ahsoka could feel the tension leaving Kowani instantly after mentioning the Nalhuta moon. The atrocities committed at the hands of the Torguda were an instant analogy for her present circumstance. "I am sorry I tried killing you, Nara," Kowani said softly. "Forgive me if I am a little behind the group here, but I don't feel apologetic. If there is an opportunity to take it to the Empire, I am all in, folks," Rex roused them all with his stamp on reality. "This is going to be more serious than simply taking it to the Empire, I'm afraid. It isn't a search party that they will send, Captain," Nara spoke up, first to Rex and then to all as a group. "Sidious will send Vader. Vader will empower his reach with as much force as he can muster," she continued. It was Ahsoka's turn to betray her emotion as a roiling, instant rage grappled for her soul at the mention of his name. She could feel an overpowering anger tearing at the fabric of her consciousness, threatening to burst through in a killing wave of devastation. "Ahsoka, what is it?" It was Kowani's turn to offer the shoulder. "I can't save him, honey. I can't save him. I don't know that I have the strength to stay my hand if he becomes involved." Ahsoka was almost panting the words. On a hunch, Rex turned his gaze upward, the ever-present instincts making themselves known. He reached around his waist to gather the quanducts he had grabbed on his way out of the ship and brought them to his eyes. "Then prepare an alternative, Ahsoka, because he's here."